All right, here we are, man. Welcome to another edition of the TBD Podcast, video podcast. Not sure what to call it yet. Like I said before, as y'all know, this video podcast slash internet show has no name yet. It has no title, and we are going to be doing this organically. You know, so like I said, I'm gonna talk about my genrics. If you guys don't know what a genric is, basically a genric is it's a word that combines the two words genre and topic. But I feel like these aren't really specific topics; they're more genres, and I just talk about things in my genre. So once again, also apologies for the subpar audio and the subpar video quality. But one thing that I'm aiming to do with this show or this podcast is I'm aiming to show the progression. Like that's what I want to do. I want to show the progression. Like for example, and like an Iron Man, right? Like I'm a big fan of symbology, and like one of my favorite movies of all time is Iron Man 1, and I liked Iron Man 1 because he had to repurpose the suit. He had to repurpose his weapons to make a suit to get out the cave, and um, like I like the whole concept of the suit being this huge, big pile of junk that served a purpose to get him out the cave. And then once he got out the cave, he had to then go and refine his suit. And overall, in the next Iron Man movies, you see the suit being recultivated and refined, and that's kind of how I want this podcast to go, right? Like right now, shit, nigga, we in the cave. Nigga, this is some caveman shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm in this, I'm in this crummy ass, the one bedroom apartment, you know what I'm saying? And, the audio's not that good. The sound quality's not that good, but hey, we building it up, So my goal is over time just to keep doing this and then, you know, get the audio put together, get the video, then get everything going so people can look back at where this came from to see where it's at. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like I got to sneeze, man. I hate this, Because originally I used to shoot these little videos on YouTube, right, for about like 10 minutes. And I would get into it, man, and I would try to make everything so perfect, And if I couldn't get it perfect, nigga, I would have to stop and reset. And so a lot of videos that you see on my YouTube channel, like that are like the shorter ones, it took me like half a day to shoot that shit. Excuse me. Hope it's not that COVID nigga shit. Now I just got bad allergies and shit. Hopefully, I should have taken my Zyrtec, but I didn't. But we recording, so whatever happened, happened. You know, we not gonna do no retakes. We just gonna keep going. So, anyways, yeah. So that's the whole theme of what I'm trying to do. Like that's the overarching theme of what I'm trying to do. Like I want to show the progression. You know, like things aren't great right now, but we gonna make the most out of what we got, and we just gonna build it. So that's that. But as I said earlier, I'm also a fan of like symbology, right? Like in movies, like you know what I'm saying. Um, like another fan, like another one of my, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite movies, but I like the scene in one of these movies. It's Dark Knight Rises, and it's when Batman was in the cave or in the hole, and he was trying to get out the hole, and he was wondering how the arch villain or whoever the villain was in that movie, he was wondering how that boy got out the cave, and the whole time all these prisoners are trying to get out using a rope, and they don't make it out. So one of the old veterans in the prison underground, he basically told Batman, he was like, look, if you want to get out of here, nigga, you gotta lose the rope. And that shit, when I heard that, it like gave me goosebumps, man. Like I was like it gave me the chills because it resonated. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a safety net in life and you want to get somewhere, you're gonna have to give up that safety. you know, you're gonna have to give up that comfort to make it, you know, and you got to be able to risk it all because in Dark Knight Rises that hole was deep, you know, and he had to jump from one ledge to the next ledge, and it was a far ledge. And if you have that rope on you, you're gonna feel like, oh, okay, well, this is my backup plan. So in case I don't make that jump, you know, I can still, I may fall against the wall or like bang up against the wall, but at least I know that, you know, I'm still safe. But nigga, you still in the hole. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to get out, you got to lose that rope and just jump and go for it. If you don't make it, nigga, you dead. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that whole scene, like, kind of like, I like it because it fucks with me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, is it better to be comfortable and miserable but be alive, or is it better to go for it all, risk it all in an attempt to get out or to reach higher levels and risk dying? You know what I'm saying? So that's a real deep thing. But we're not here to talk about movies. Like, we're here to talk about some like other real shit. You know what I'm saying? So anywho, let's go and get into it, right? So like I said before, we cover genrics, right? Which is a genre / topic, right? Because I don't really have like specific topics, but I have genres that I kind of like know about, right? So, and as you all know, my genrics are right now are speech impediments, simpin, daily fantasy sports, school bullshit, and then work bullshit. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start off with some speech impediment stuff, right? Okay, so cool. Let's start with the speech impediment genre. So as y'all know, when I was younger, I developed a severe speech impediment at around the age of 7. And I still have it, you know, but I've learned to manage it. You know, that's the thing, right? So don't be surprised if throughout this show or this podcast that you catch me, you know, doing one of them joints, right? Because I'm human. I'm not perfect. You know what I'm saying? I'm owning my shit. All right. And like I said, if I do it, I'll call it out. If something else happens and that wasn't it, I'll also be like, you know what? That wasn't it. So, but, you know, so you guys get the point. But anyways, yeah, so I still have it, but like I know how to manage it, right? That's the whole thing, right? It's like I've learned how to work with the shit, right? Because my whole life I was trying to eliminate it, you know? But when you try to eliminate it, it's like all you're going to do is build up pressure and get frustrated. And, you know, we already talked about that. So let's go ahead and talk about something else. So the funny thing about this time period that we're in right now is we have to wear a mask, or we're supposed to wear masks, right? I mean, I'm walking outside, I see motherfuckers not wearing masks and shit. I wear my mask, man, because like I said, I'm trying to protect lives. I'm just trying to play by the rules, man. Like it doesn't really hurt me to wear a mask, so I figured I'd wear it, right? But the one thing I'm realizing is when I wear a mask, like sometimes I'll be stuttering under my mask, and it's like people don't know. So that's kind of, I guess, like the advantage of wearing a mask, right? Because I'd be under my mask doing a. But now what I'm doing now is like I'm watching my eyes, right? Like if I, and then, you know, my eyes like kind of get big or whatever, you know, I'm kind of fucking up, you know? But if I'm talking and I can do oop, 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 it's like I learn how to control my eyes. So like I'm learning how to control this part of my face better and like hiding it, you know? And also I noticed too that it's like, so I have like, I kind of did it there. You saw that? I did it again. Okay, cool. But anyways, I kind of noticed that that my masks that I have like different types of masks, right? And some of my masks are like real tight, you know, and I poked myself in the eye. But some of my masks are like real tight. And the tighter my mask, like the harder it is for me to talk, because my lips are like touching my mask, and it's like don't know how to explain it, but it's like it's interfering with like, it's like a barrier, right? Because I feel like my lips are like moving, and now it's like, yeah. So when you have a speech impediment, right, like basically every little thing can like throw you off, right? So the fact that I have my lips touching this mask, I'm like struggling sometimes, right? Like one time I went to this one restaurant to get some food, and they were like, "Hey, can we take your order?" And I was on that joint, and I'm just looking, but I was like, I guess I was like stuttering low. You know what I'm saying? So when I was stuttering low, like they didn't know that I was like really even talking. So it was like I could play it off, like you know what I'm saying? So that's a funny thing, right? Like I said before, like there's as in life and everything, right? There's pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages, right? And the pros of wearing a mask are people don't see my mouth and what's going on underneath, like my nose, right? But at the same time, it's like I have to learn how to control my eyes and my reaction to when I fuck up, like talking, right? The disadvantage is like, you know, there's a barrier or there's something touching my lips that's actually like, you know, causing me to like mess up or whatever, right? But we human, you know what I'm saying? We ain't perfect. We'll get over it or we'll get through it, right? But what else, man? About speech impediment joint. So what I want to talk about today when it comes to speech impediments is this notion of sounding dumb, right? Like that's what. See, I did it there. See, y'all saw that. But here's the thing, right? Um, like when you like, I remember growing up, and it was like always people like judge you by how you sound, you know. And I remember hearing people say, "Oh, this person sounds like a doofus," or "This person sounds like an idiot," or "Oh, this person, you know, um, he doesn't articulate himself well." Like they try to associate with how you sound with your intelligence, and that to me, as I've grown up in life, is like one thing I pay attention to, man. Because I remember growing up, and like I'm not trying to like throw any shade at anybody, but I remember growing up, like people used to make fun of how Mike Tyson sounded, you know, and they still do to this day. But they don't realize that this motherfucker is like well read, and this motherfucker is like deep. Like he's a philosopher, man, and he be saying some of the most realest shit, you know. And one thing I've learned throughout life is you can't judge someone's intelligence by how they sound or how they project themselves, you know. Like this voice shit is just a channel. It's just a medium. You know what I'm saying? It's just a medium, you know? Um, Now, what comes out the medium and how it lines up with truth and reason and all that shit is different. You know what I'm saying? So I remember, man, growing up, man, like I said, I developed a severe speech impediment when I was young. And I remember, like, being in class, man, and, like, I used to hate to be called on because, like, it was like there's so much pressure, you know, and I knew I would like fuck up or I could fuck up, you know what I'm saying? Or my voice would fail me, you know? And I remember though, like just thinking to myself, you know, a lot of times if I got asked a question, like I knew the answer. I'm not saying all the time, like I'm not no genius, nothing like that, but more times than not, maybe like 80% of the time, I knew the answer, you know? And I had to learn how to know if I was gonna fuck up. I had to learn to know. I had to learn to know, or it doesn't make any fucking sense. I had to learn how to determine if my voice was gonna fuck up before I spoke, right? So I'm doing all this mental processing or whatever, and I also got to get the answer out, right? So there were times in class where I would get asked a question, and if I knew that my voice would fail me with a certain with a certain set of sounds I had to make, I would purposely give the wrong answer on something that I knew I could comfortably say and look like I didn't know the answer versus trying to give the right answer but sounding dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to do that a lot. That's one thing that a lot of people don't realize, right? When you have like a speech impediment or whatever, it's like you have to like learn how to manage around that, right? Like a lot of times I had to choose the wrong answer but looking normal versus, you know, giving the appropriate answer and sounding like I had a problem, right? And that's one thing that I had to do a whole lot of, man, you know? Um, and a lot of people like don't realize that, you know? Like I remember one time, because I do this bit, like, you know, I'm also a comedian, you know, I tell jokes. I've been telling jokes for years or whatever. But I do this bit or whatever where, you know, I basically I'm in class or whatever, and like my vowels, like I had like trouble with my vowels when I was younger, right? Like a lot of times my vowels, my vocal cords or my vocal folds wouldn't like connect, or they wouldn't touch, or they wouldn't, I guess, vibrate to make like the sound or whatever, right? So when that happened, it would look like I was like gasping for air, you know? And I remember like, one time I was in class and the teacher was like, Andre, what's 2 times 4? And I knew what the answer was. It was 8, but 8 is a vowel sounding word, right? So I knew I couldn't say 8. So I would say like 7. And I had no problem saying 7 or 9 or just giving the wrong answer just to get away from me. So she'd be like, Andre. I'm like, okay, 9? Andre. And I'm just sitting to myself like, look, bitch, if I know the answer is 8 and I'm giving you 7 or 9, bitch, just know that I can't get 8 out right now. You know what I'm saying? But that's the kind of shit I had to like deal with. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and what this also made me think of was I took an acting class not too long ago, and in the acting class there was a voice coach, and he has this dope like CD or this dope like teaching package, right, where um like he basically has you do vocal exercises to get your vocal folds going and to have more confidence in your voice, and I thought it was a bonus because I'm like, shit, maybe it might help with my stuttering. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of did, but it didn't. I mean, it served a whole nother purpose, right? Like, he was dealing with people that had like weak voices, or where their voice was either too high or the words were too muffled. But anyways, it was good practice. It was a good thing I learned or whatever. Um, uh, if you want to check it out, it's a, I think it's a, if you Google Bob Korf and you look at on his site, you'll see the joint come up. But it's a dope course, man. Like, it goes through all the sounds that you like do. It's just a bunch of vocal exercises, but they help, I think, in the long run. But one thing he said in his vocal training tapes or whatever was, which kind of fits with the topic that I'm talking, or the genre that I'm talking about now. One thing he said in his teaching tapes one thing he said in his teaching tapes was, he said that a confident sounding voice makes all the difference in the world. He basically said that, a lot of people know the answers, or they're more informative than someone else, but the people that actually win, I guess, are the ones that sound like they know what they're talking about, right? Right? There's knowing what you're talking about, and then there's sounding like you know what you're talking about, And he basically had this thing where he looked at, I think it was the standard American melody, right? And different countries have different like American melody, or not different American melodies, but they have different melodies for their country, right? So he was saying for like the United States or for America, it's up, down, down, furthest down, right? So he gave an example where if someone asked, hey, where's such and such? And if someone says, hey, it's right over there, right? It sounds like you're asking a question. You know what I'm saying? But he said, if you say, it's right over there, it sounds like you know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? So I think he even said too in his tapes that a lot of times there were like women who were more knowledgeable than men, but because they went up in their pitch for whatever they said, that it sounded like they didn't know what they were talking about, when really, the dude who sounded like he knew what he was talking about didn't know shit. And that's kind of like, a little tie-in to like how it is to me with like stuttering, right? Like, a lot of times when you have a speech impediment, a lot of times people, like, they just don't have confidence in what you have to say. Like, they're just like, man, nah. Like, he don't know what he's talking about. But really, it's like a lot of people that I know, or other people with speech impediments I came across, they were very knowledgeable, and it's like you have to like learn how to like discern that, right? So that's one thing I've learned as a listener, is you have to be able to take things for what they are. You know, like you have to listen to the words and not how they come out. You have to listen to the knowledge and the facts, and then go back and test that shit to make sure it lines up with like truth. You know. So, anywho, I think I harped on that a little bit, I think I harped on that enough. So let's go on to the next genric. Next genric is simpin. Okay, simpin. So I've had some conversations with some of my colleagues and my friends about this topic, right? And it amazes me, man, how so many women are mad at dudes coming out and speaking on simping, right? Like, if anything, here's the thing, right? I'm not a dating coach, but I like to consider myself as a simpologist, right? Because I've done it for so long, I'm an expert at it. I know all the ins and outs of it, you know? And when I have conversations with people, you know, of different genders, it always amazes me how females get offended by what I have to say on the topic, you know? Like, for example, the way I define the shit, which makes sense based on my life and what I've been through, is a simp is a dude who does things with the intent on either raising or keeping the interest of a chick. And it's funny how females hear what they want to hear, right? Like, if I give an example, right? I'll give an example, like, for example, I'll say, you know, hey, it doesn't matter really what a guy does. It's the rationale behind why he does it. Right? Did y'all catch that? So, for example, females will be like, they'll look at just the action, but I'll try to tease out the rationale behind the action, you know? So they'll be like I, for example, if I say, or they'll point out a dude that buys a chick a flower, and they'll be like, that's not simping. Just because he bought him a flower, that doesn't make him a simp. I'm like, yeah, I never said that. I said just because he bought him a flower. Just because he bought her a flower, that doesn't make him a simp. And I'm like, I didn't say that. You're not listening. I'm like, look, if he bought the flower with the intention on raising her interest or out of fear of losing her, then that's a simpish action. Oh, so you mean that if a guy does something nice for a female, he a simp? No. And it's funny because I just give example after example after example, and then, you know, they hear what they want to hear, you know? Who hurt you in life? You've been scorned. You should. I'm like, okay, whatever. Y'all hear what y'all want to hear, man. You know? So anyways, the shit that's funny about it is I think females get mad at dudes trying to expose the simp game because either one, I think it's because either one, they feel guilty because they knew a simp that used to fuck with them, or they used to fuck with a simp, and they took advantage of that dude and they feel guilty about it. Or two, they like the nature of the simp because it helps them to like stay a level above, or it helps build their confidence, right? It's like AMS said in one of his joints, right? In his videos, he said basically women need validation, you know, like you have to look at like females like flowers, you know, and if you start with the sunshine or validation, you know, it's going to change the game up, you know what I'm saying? And I think that with simps, females, there's a class of females that like the simp because the simps give them nourishment, you know, they give them social nourishment to where they can feel good about themselves, you know, and I think that, if you look at that dynamic, what's happening is basically a dude has to belittle himself to make another chick feel good. And dudes are starting to like catch on to that, you know? I know at least I have, you know, and I got more confidence in myself, and females don't like that, I guess. I don't know. But it just amazes me how people hear what they want to hear, you know? And whenever there's confusion or chaos or whatever, that means you're hitting on something. You know, that means that you might not be, I did it there. That might mean, you know, you might be you might not be hitting like the right chord, but you're hitting something. You know what I mean? So, anywho, that's what I got to say about that. Now let's move on to another part within the genre of simping, right? I want to talk about where simping leads. All right, let's go into it. All right, let's really get into it. But where does simping lead? And it's my conjecture, or it's my belief, that simping leads to Henpegism. Ooh. Simping leads to Henpegism, right? So what is Henpegism, or what is being a henpeg, right? A henpeg is basically, I've heard different variations of the shit, so I'm gonna try to kind of give you context, right? So basically, if you look up the definition of a henpeg, basically it's a chick that is typically married to a man, but in this case you don't have to be married to a dude, or you don't have to be married at all. But a henpeg is a chick that constantly nags at her man. Just nag, and belittles him like all over the time. Like, it can be behind closed doors, it can be in public, but she just nags at him to belittle him. That's basically what a henpeck is, right? And I've also heard it used in the terms of where it's the dude that allows a female to do that. So really, Henpegism is the combination of the two, right? It's basically the combination of a female nagging at the dude and belittling him, and the dude not standing up for himself, right? So why do I say that simping leads to Henpegism, right? Well, I say that because when you simp, or when a dude simps, basically what he's doing is he's putting the chick on a pedestal, and he's doing things like mechanically, he's doing things with the intent on, like I said before, on either raising or keeping the interest of a chick. So when you keep doing that over a long period of time with one chick, that chick's gonna get annoyed at that shit. She gonna grow tired of that shit. And when she gets tired of it, like, she's either A, she gonna leave you, or she feel like she can't do better than what you got, or if she can't do better than what she already has, she'll stick around, but she gonna nag at you. And she gonna nag at you because she knows that you ain't gonna do shit, because you don't get the game, right? So I'm gonna throw this little scratchy shit. Hope it's not that COVID nigga shit. But that's where simping leads. That's where the shit leads to, man. Because look at it, right? If you simping, like, here's what I learned, like, back when I was in school, right? I learned this back in college, and what I learned in school was basically we had this saying, right? I forgot who said it, but we had this saying, like, in my dorm, where basically they said you shouldn't want to be in a relationship with a chick in college, because when you get in a relationship with a chick in college, that's a whole extra course. That's another 4 credits. You know what I'm saying? So if you're already taking 18 credits and you in a relationship with a chick, nigga, that's 22 credits you're taking. And not only is it like more credits, not only is it more work, but what people don't get is whatever you like. What people don't get is whatever is your baseline for what you do with a chick, multiply that times 10 moving forward. It's only going to go up from there, right? There is no, I'm going to come in ground level and everything going to stay there, right? Like, she's going to constantly do things to make you raise the bar. So if you come in doing all this juggling act and all these little tricks and shit just to get her attention, and then you finally get her, your shit probably not gonna work out, because you're gonna get burnt out and she'll probably leave you alone. Or if you're unlucky and y'all go the distance, she gonna be nagging at you, and you gonna be in a henpeck relationship, or you're gonna be a victim of henpegism, right? So that's where simping leads. Okay, simping leads to henpegism. Now, notice that I didn't say that if you get in a relationship or if you're married, um, you a simp or um, you're gonna deal with or you're gonna become a victim of henpegism. What I said was shit. I lost my train of thought. I hate when this happens when you lose your train of thought because I'm kind of going in. But anyways, um, yeah, when you go in, yeah. So basically, I'm going to come back to that train of thought, man. Because I was going somewhere with it, man. But that shit happens. Brain fart. Okay, whatever. But in conclusion, let's just move on to the next thing, right? So in conclusion, simping leads to henpegism, right? And we'll probably go in deeper in it in another episode. But let's move on to the next genre. Next genre is daily fantasy sports or DFS. So, as y'all know, I play DraftKings a lot. I don't put up big money, but I like to kind of consider myself as a data scientist. You know what I'm saying? Like I look at numbers and data and stats, and I look for relationships between numbers and stats and all that fun stuff. And man, daily fantasy sports got me, man. Look, DraftKings got me this past weekend, man. Uh, I know a lot of y'all were out there, man, but this past Sunday, right? Um, this past Sunday with the Vikings, I got cooked by Dalvin Cook because Dalvin Cook been killing it for the past couple weeks, right? So my thought process was he's at home, and who they play? They played I want to say they played Jacksonville. Let me double check. Let me just double check this right quick. I want to say they played Jacksonville. Could be wrong. No, they're playing Jacksonville this weekend. They played Carolina. And Carolina, man, they gave up a lot of rushing touchdowns, right? So my whole thought process was Dalvin Cook is killing. He's $9,500 in DraftKings. He's what 1/5 of your salary. He's playing Carolina in Minnesota in their home arena or dome, and I was like, I had to take Dalvin Cook. Just had to take Dalvin Cook. And my whole thought process behind this shit was when I watched Carolina play Tampa Bay at home, and they was it at home or away? But when they played Tampa Bay and they let Ronald Jones run that 98-yard touchdown, I'm like, if Ronald Jones can do that, Dalvin Cook can do that. And not only that, Adam Thielen was out. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, if Thielen is out, and they got Kirk Cousins back there, the easiest to do is just going to be to hand the ball off. Nope. So, and I totally overlooked Derrick Henry because I'm saying to myself, Derrick Henry, my whole thought process was, man, I didn't see that. I'm like, the Colts got a good defense, that they're gonna stack the box, and Indy is kind of a hodgepodge, or they're kind of a mix-up, right? Like they could be a passing team or they can be a running team, right? They can either be a running first team or a passing first team. And I was like, I don't want to take that chance, but see, a lot of the shit is a lot of how daily fantasy sports works, man. It all depends on how the coaches are going to coach the game. That's what you're really looking at, right? You're really looking at how are the coaches going to coach the game. Like when you look at just pure ability and what a team should do, yeah, that's the tricky part, right? Like you know what a team is capable of and you know what a team should be doing, but you don't know what a coach is going to do, right? You don't know what you don't know the coaching scheme or what they're going to try to do, right? So logically, with the Vikings playing the Panthers, you would think that, okay, no Adam Thielen, Carolina can't stop the run. Just feed Dalvin Cook, and the game will be over by halftime, And they out there throwing. And not only were they throwing, see, here's the funny thing, too, about DraftKings and daily fantasy sports, right? So I didn't discover it, but I know I'm late, but the Red Zone channel is perfect if you watch fantasy sports, man. Like, because they take you to where you need to be to see what the fuck is going on. They got the octo box. If like they'll put the octo box up if everyone's getting ready to score, you know. But I used to go to this bar, you know, pre-COVID, you know. When it opens up, I'm gonna go down there again. But I used to go to this place called Sharky's, and they had all the games on all these TVs, man. It was like being in the Batcave, you know what I'm saying? Where you got all these TVs with all the games on the shit, right? And it's like when you're watching the game in that environment, it's like you got to do this. Oh shit! Oh fuck! What happened? You know? And if you hear someone scream over here, hey man, what happened? What happened? Oh, what happened? Over? Like it's like you're doing this the whole time, right? But with the Red Zone channel, man, it's like Scott Hansen take you right to the action, man, wherever it's going, you know? And when you fill out your lineup and when you start watching the Red Zone channel, you know within the first 5 minutes if you gonna lose or not, yo. And it's like, it's real easy, right? Because the cameraman focuses on all the wrong people, right? He'll focus on the people that's not even in your roster, you know? So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, cool. I spent $9,500 of DraftKings money on Dalvin Cook. So I better see this motherfucker in every screenshot. And they kept showing Derrick Henry. I'm like, fuck, man, they keep showing Derrick Henry. Even coming out the huddle, it's like the cameramen know who's gonna go off. Matter of fact, I think the camera people work for DraftKings, man. Because when they come out of the huddle, they'll go right to the player. And I'm like, dude, how the fuck do you know that the ball's going to so-and-so if you weren't in on the huddle? Or better yet, I think what it is they have a camera. I think what it is like I learned this too, right? There's a green sticker on the back of the helmet of all the quarterbacks, right? And basically that green sticker means that it's like a certified helmet for like their communications, right? I think it's not Motorola. I forgot who it is, but whoever does their communications, it's a symbol that this helmet piece is a transmitting and receiving device, right? So what I think all the camera people have taps to what the quarterbacks are doing in the huddle. And that's why when they call a play, they'll know who to put the camera on, right? Because think about it, right? When they come out, like they were just putting the camera on Derrick Henry. I'm like, fuck, he gonna get this ball. And they just put the camera on him close up. I'm like, shit. So anyways, that's my theory at least. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, so I had a bad week last week, man, in DraftKings, man. Like, I thought I figured this shit out, and I don't know shit, you know? So not only was Dalvin Cook not getting the ball, or not only was the cameraman not on him, they had different backs coming in the game. They had Alexander Madison coming in. And I'm like, yo, what the... So I knew that. I'm like, I'm done. You can't spend $95. Look, if you spend $9,500 of salary cap money on a player in DraftKings, that camera better be on that dude 95% of the time. If not, you lost. This is how the game works. You know? So that was that, man. So what else we gonna talk about? What else? Here we go. Yeah, so what else happened in DraftKings last week in my lineup? Did it again. Boom. What else happened in DraftKings last week? Who else did I go with? I went with, let me check my lineup. Shit. Let me go back and look at this failure of a lineup that I put in last week, man. Because I just knew in the first 5 minutes, I was like, I almost cut the TV off, man. I already knew what was going to happen. But who did I have last week? Oh yeah, I got Patrick Mahomes right. You know, and a lot of people say, oh, well, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. Well, yeah, he's the best quarterback in the league, but that's not how it works in DraftKings in fantasy sports. You got to look at the value. Like, you got to look at points per dollar spent, right? Like, you have to look at who is being the most efficient, right? And that's hard to do because you have to be able to project and know who is going to make the perfect list, right? I'm trying to get the perfect list so I can get this milli. That's just my aim, you know what I'm saying? But I looked at the data, I did the research, and I picked Mahomes, and that was the one pick I got right. But everyone else, Dalvin Cook, he got me 11.2 fantasy points. I went with Wayne Gallman Jr. And I went with Wayne Gallman Jr. because I've been watching, or the Red Zone channel has been on him, and I kind of watched how the Giants used him. But what I think messed up was when Daniel Jones got hurt. Like when Danny Dimes went down and they brought in Colt McCoy, they just changed up the whole offense. Like that's when you're supposed to be feeding Gallman, right? Like Gallman can get it done. So when they brought in Colt McCoy and he was just throwing the ball all over the place, I was like, man, this game is done. So I knew I fucked up there. I picked Robert Woods because I just looked at the data and he gave me 15.8 fantasy points. I went Jameson Crowder going against the Dolphins, and I almost picked the Jets defense last week. I almost went with the Jets defense because it being a divisional game, and they put Ryan Fitzpatrick back there, and Fitzpatrick, is gonna sling that ball. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I kind of had like a little. That's why I was kind of like a little torn because I'm like, Fitzmagic will throw that ball. Like he gonna throw that rock or that pig. He gonna throw that pig around. And I was banking on, him throwing a couple of picks, with the Jets defense or whatever. So I was kind of thinking I could possibly see a pick six coming. I mean, I knew the Dolphins were gonna win the game probably, but I thought it was gonna be closer than what it was. But I messed up. But I went with Crowder because they got what's his name back. They got their quarterback back. Darnold came back, and I was like, he gonna light it up with Crowder, but Crowder only got me 6.10 points. And then I took the hype on Michael Pittman. I mean, Michael Pittman's gonna be nice, but he's not gonna be he's not a consistent. He's not consistent yet with the offense, right? So he only gave me 4 point. No, he only gave me 4.8 points. Then who else did I have? I had my sleeper pick. So my sleeper pick, I went with Tyler Eifert. Tyler injury-prone Eifert. That's what I went with. And Tyler Eifert, I believe he went to Notre Dame, and then he played for the Bengals for a long time, and he just kept getting hurt. So I went with Eifert for 2 weeks in a row, and I went with him because, number one, he was under $3,000. And if he's under $3K, I don't like, if you know me, I don't like spending money on tight ends. It's just, to me, it's like you got to like get that shit right because you could like spend like $4K, $6K on a tight end and they don't do shit. And that's your whole roster right there. Like, you've lost, right? But I went with Eifert because they had their quarterback in there. Who's their quarterback? What's his name? Mike Glennon. And Mike Glennon was supposed to be like a protege. Like, he was supposed to be a top tier quarterback. Like, I remember him like maybe like 8 years ago, maybe or more, where he was supposed to be a top tier quarterback coming in the league, and he played for the Bears. He bounced around and shit. I remember the Bills were gonna get him, and if you don't know me, the Bills are my team. You know what I'm saying? So I remember the Bills talking. I remember back in the day they were talking about getting Mike Glennon. But I was thinking to myself, Mike Glennon is slow. He's tall. He's big, and he's going up against a Cleveland defense that is sacking the shit out of quarterback. So I'm thinking to myself, easy dump off, easy valve, right? I'm thinking to myself, Glennon's gonna be dumping this ball off to Eifert every time they get a chance. And if I can get like 8 targets and 7 catches for like 45 yards and a touchdown or 2, that's a value pick. But he didn't do bad, Tyler Eifert got 10.6 fantasy points. And he did have 1 touchdown. Only had 3 receptions though for 16 yards, so that's not going to get it done. And then also where I messed up too was, here's the thing, right? If you go and stack players, you got to stack the quarterback. But my mindset was different, and you'll see why I was thinking this way, right? So my flex, I went with Darius Slayton, right? Because I look at and I study like I always study like how much a player goes for a position, right? So in the flexes, I was thinking, okay, Darius Slayton matched the attribute or his salary attribute matched that position. So I said, let me go ahead and take a chance on Darius Slayton. And I'm thinking to myself, the Bengals just lost a quarterback last week. They lost Joe Burrow with that knee injury. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Giants are about to get busy. The morale of the Bengals are going to be down. And I'm thinking to myself, shit, okay, Darius Slayton time. He about to just get it tossed up, right? So I saw a blowout coming out. That's what I was going with. And I was thinking, you know, I don't want to play Danny Dimes. Well, I played Danny Dimes in one of my lineups, but I didn't play him in my main lineup because I was thinking Gallman is gonna like get like at least 2 rushing touchdowns in this game. But I did see Danny Dimes kind of like throwing the ball or chucking it to Darius Slayton for a couple big throws, So when you spread that out, it's like there was no way with that logic that Danny Dimes could have made the perfect lineup because he gave away 2 touchdowns by handing it off, right? So, anywho, Darius Slayton got me 0 points. I wish they put the targets here. I can look it up. Let me see how many targets Darius Slayton had. He got me, man. This dude went for 4.9K, which fit the profile for the flex position or the salary profile, and he only had 2 targets, man. So I got. So that messed me up. And then on my defense, I did okay on my defense. I picked the Saints defense, because that's the obvious pick because of the quarterback mishap or the quarterback carousel. That quarterback shit that happened in Denver was crazy. So in case y'all don't know, what happened was all the quarterbacks on Denver got COVID, right? Well, they've been exposed to it, so they had to quarantine all the quarterbacks. So what they did was they took a receiver and made him play quarterback for the game for the first time. I think he played quarterback in college or whatever, but I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and spend this money on the Saints defense. And the Saints did what they were supposed to do on defense. But the Falcons, of all teams, they came out of nowhere and beat the brakes off of the Raiders. That was my ring chime. Someone just walked past my door, whatever. But anyways, the Falcons, man, they showed up and they beat the brakes off the Raiders, man. Like, I didn't see that coming at all. So that's how DraftKings and daily fantasy sports work, right? It's like, whenever you think you know something, you don't. Right? So, like MacGyver said, right? Or MacGyver's uncle said in the old MacGyver series. Like, I'm a big old school MacGyver fan, right? And his uncle used to say, what did he say? His uncle said, only fools are sure of anything, but a wise man keeps on guessing. So, in DraftKings, whenever you say you know, DraftKings will show you that you don't know shit. So, anywho, that was my breakdown of my daily fantasy lineups and my road to the millions. But let's move on to the next topic. Next topic, we're going to talk about some work shit, man. No, school shit. School shit is next. Yeah. Let me go ahead and get on this right quick. So, school shit. So, as y'all know, I am anti-school, but I'm pro-education, right? And we talked about this in past videos and shit, but so I'm not going to go ahead and harp on that. But I was thinking about this the other day. The thing I was thinking about the other day was I was thinking about the fact that schools don't teach you how you learn. Let me say that again. Schools don't teach you how you learn. Right? Like, in school, they need to be teaching you to study yourself. Right? Like, schools have this thing of there's only one way to do things. You have to do it this way. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do that. And if you don't do it this way, then you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You go to special ed or some shit. Right? And that's like the furthest thing from the truth. Like, I pay attention to behavior, And when it comes to schools, right, and people studying how they learn, I just thought back to, like, my education, right? I thought back to, like, my days in academia, And I made two habitual flaws in school that I think would have bettered or improved my learning process, right? So I'm gonna talk about notes and I'm gonna talk about reading, right? So, um, so whenever I took notes in class, like they would just say, "You got to take notes. Why aren't you taking notes? Take notes, take notes, take notes," right? But they don't teach you how to take notes, right? And they don't teach you like, hey, there could be a writer. Like they don't teach you that, hey, look, there's no right or wrong way to take notes. But all they want to do is see that pen moving. That's all they want to see is that pen moving. So for the longest time in school, when I took notes, I thought the goal was to write down everything the teacher said and then go home and figure that shit out. So I'm going to school just writing notes. Just, teacher, I got a question. Yes, Andre. Can you repeat what you said 2 sentences ago? I got to get it down on paper. So the whole time in class, like I'm so note anxious and I'm so worried about taking these notes that I was missing like what was being said in class, So as I got older, or now when I look back at it, the one thing I wish I did was I wish that when I took notes in school, I wish that I took notes on things that weren't clear, right? Because a lot of people don't realize, yeah, you might not know everything, but you might be surprised of what you do know or what makes sense when you hear it, right? So if something makes sense when you hear it, you don't have to write that down because your brain already knows. Like, yeah, I already know that. But when something, is said that you don't know, you need to just write that down and then focus on that, right? Because think about it, right? Like I'm spending all my energy trying to capture everything, but yet there are certain things that are foreign that I don't know that I didn't even focus on like that because I'm worried about trying to capture every last little word down, And I look back and I'm like, man, how come I didn't think about that? How come I didn't, because I wasn't focused and studying how I learned, So that's one thing that I wish I did different was like, I think a few times I brought tape recorders to class and I asked if I could tape record the class and teacher said, yeah. But even when you tape record a class, it's like, what happens then is that kind of goes against you because now what you're doing is there's this comfort that's being built up that, oh, okay, I can listen to it later. Let me go ahead and do some other shit that I want to go do while you're in class. But then when you get back home, it's like you still got to listen to the shit. So you might as well listen the first time, But I should have wrote down things that sounded peculiar or that didn't make sense. And I should have focused only on that. If I would have did that, I'd have probably increased my grade by at least like 15% easily. Because now it's like the shit I do know. I think what it was I had the fear of. I think I had the fear of being overconfident in what I thought I knew, and then when you have the fear, or the fear of being overconfident in what you know, now the issue becomes it's like okay, well now it's like your brain kind of gets in this little funk where it's like now you get on an exam and you see something that you should know but you forget, right? But that's okay. Like you can go through textbooks and find that and just go back and review that. But I should have like really focused on things that didn't make sense. Like I should have been listening in class for okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. What the fuck did you say? I'm gonna write this down because I don't know what that means. Okay, and then keep listening, and then after class, either go talk with the professor or people or students and try to find that thing that you don't know. That's the secret to education, man. You got to find out what it is you don't know and focus on that. Right? That's education. And like I said, there's a lot of shit I don't know. Right? I think the way it goes is first, you have to realize that you don't know a lot of shit. But then the shit that you don't know, you got to really focus on that. So, and then with reading, right? So, I was a poor reader for a long time. Matter of fact, I think I'm still a poor reader, Let me tell y'all this story right quick, y'all, because it fits in real nicely, right? But when I was in, 4th grade, 5th grade, they used to give out these little standardized tests, right? And, like, my reading level was always, like, way behind, but my math level was like always like way ahead, right? So it was something crazy, man, where like um I would be in the fifth grade with like a second grade reading level, but an eighth grade or a ninth grade math level, right? So that's how my shit was, right? Like math to me, I just get the shit, you know? Um, or I'm not saying I'm no wizard or no genius, but or I'm some wizard or genius, but basically it's like math to me was fun, or closed form solution math was fun or is fun because it's like a puzzle, right? It's like I look at it like a puzzle, like, oh, this piece fits here, this piece fits there, so boom, it's that, you know? That's how my mind works, right? Like I look for patterns and I can piece shit together, you know? But my reading level was always like grade level behind. Like I remember I was in eighth grade and they said I had like a fourth grade reading level, but like they were like basically, nigga, you don't need to take math in college. Like your math is through the roof or whatever, right? But anyways, that's a little bit more about me. Another funny thing is, so when I was taking my SATs to get into college or whatever, I took an SAT prep class. I went to Kaplan, right? My folks came up with the bread to help me get into this little Kaplan like learning thing to take the SATs. And the SAT is a fucking game, yo. It's like it's a game. You just have to know the rules. Like to me, taking an SAT and doing well on it doesn't really show like intelligence. It just shows whether you know the game or not, you know, or the rules of the game. And back when I took the SATs, it was funny because they had this thing where I think now when you take the SATs, for every wrong answer, even if it's blank, you lose a quarter of a point. But back when I took it, if you didn't answer, that answer didn't even go into your score, or you got 0 points for that. But if you got a wrong answer and filled something out, you got docked like minus a quarter of a point. You know, so I remember I was taking the Kaplan course, and they're kind of like giving us all the tricks of the trade or whatever. And my math was like strong. Like the guy was like, "Look, man, you don't need to even worry about math. Like, don't even like maybe like once a night do like two problems, but math shit you got to figure it out. You already know." Then there's other things too, like in the SATs you have like analogies and you got fill in the blanks, you know. And they taught me the tricks of the trade for those. So I figured out how to do, you know, the analogies and the fill in the blanks. But that reading comprehension, oh no, it wasn't reading it was critical reading, right? Critical reading is not reading comprehension. Okay, let me say that again. Critical reading is not reading comprehension. You know what I mean? So I struggle with reading comprehension, you know, but critical reading, I know what the fuck I was doing with that critical reading. I remember even in the Kaplan course, right? They're giving me all the tricks of the trade in the game, and the professor or the person that taught the course, like he would come around and kind of like give you advice on what you should do, right? And, like give you a game plan for you. He would give you a game plan for how to take your test. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, he would give you like a game plan for your test or whatever. And he came to me and was like, "Look, I'm gonna tell you like this, Dre." He said, "Look, man, you gonna knock all this shit out the water, but it's critical reading. Don't even touch the shit on the exam. Don't even do it. Just don't do it. It's gonna hurt your score. Don't do it because you haven't because during the whole course I'm doing the exercises or whatever, and then during the practice test and the course, I was getting like one answer. I might get like one answer right out of like 20. That's how bad I was doing on that shit." So he was like, "Look," he's like, "Man, if I were you, I wouldn't even touch the critical reading section. Just don't do it." Right? So on the Kaplan joint, or when I went in on my took my official SATs, I remember this day very vividly. I was in the cafeteria doing my exam, and I'm knocking all the other stuff out or whatever. I remember we got to the critical reading section, and I just closed my book and I put my pencil down on top of my book, and I just sat there. And the teacher was like, the proctor was like, "Well, you already done with the critical reading?" I was like, "No." "Are you gonna try to do it?" I said, "No." "Why not? I mean, I don't understand." I'm like, "Well, based on my practice and my training it's in my best interest not to do it for this exam. And believe it or not, I got like a, what did I get? I got like an 1150 or something like that on my SAT. Still, without doing critical reading, I got like 1100 on that shit. So without doing critical reading, I just closed the book on the section and I got 1100. So I guess now what they do is now they figured out that, hey, students are getting hip to the game. You know, you got to try to answer something. So now it's like if you skip an answer, you get minus a quarter of a point instead of, just getting it wrong, right? So anywho, so when I read, right, a big thing I used to do when I was in school when I read was when I read, I get tired, man. I be getting sleepy when I read, man. Because I do a lot of subvocalization. I subvocalize in my head when I read, and sometimes like if I'm reading for leisure and I'm reading a book where it's like for fun, it kind of plays out because I'm enjoying it. Like it's like I'm watching a movie and shit. But when it comes to just like reading shit, it's like I process every word. Like I'm trying to train my eyes to just scan the page and look at the words and come up with the pictures and move on. I don't want to, like, I'm trying to do that, right? But one thing I did that I used to do when I read, and this was the dumbest shit I ever, like I said, like schools don't really teach you to study how you learn. But one flaw that I made back when I was like reading back in the day, especially like textbook reading, was I would get a highlighter and I would highlight every fucking line. And the shit that I didn't understand, I would go back and get a pen and underline that. So I'm thinking that highlighting is helping me to read, but it's really not. I'm sitting there doing this. Sometimes I'll be reading and my brain will shut off and I'm just highlighting the shit. And I think part of me was saying, you know what, like, I think part of it was I was afraid that if I didn't know something or if I didn't do well, I could at least go show them the textbook and be like, here's my textbook. And they could see it and be like, oh yeah, he did read it, but he didn't process it. So I went through the action. So I thought action meant effectiveness, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So when I read, what I should have done, like when I take notes, is only highlight shit that doesn't make sense. And if I would have done that, I would have probably been a lot further along in the game, But I'm getting better, I'm taking some courses and shit on how to be more efficient and more effective at that, Because like I said before, I'm anti-school, but I'm pro-education, right? I'm educating myself. Like education doesn't stop. That's the difference, right? School stops, education doesn't, right? So that's what I learned, at least, from all that. And let me go ahead and wrap up on this last genric, work bullshit. I'm going to make it kind of quick because I don't want to go really too much more than an hour. But sometimes when we flowing, we just got to keep flowing. But I think I'm about to probably wrap this up in a few minutes. But let's talk about work. Talk about work, man. So one thing I've learned about work is this. There's working on poop, and then there's working on bullshit. Sorry, let me take that back. That's not what I meant to say. One thing I learned about work is there's working on poop, and then there's working on the shit. All right? Let me go and break this down. So, a lot of people might get offended by this, but I really don't give a shit. This is my experience. If you don't like what I got to say, then cut my channel off and do whatever you got to do. But it's not for you. But I'm trying to put people on game, right? So one thing I learned was with being in the industry is there's poop work and then there's the shit, right? And really only about 5% of people actually work on the shit, while 95% of people work on poop. Now, let me go back and clarify, right? Poop doesn't mean that it's bad work or it's not fun. It just means that it's not what makes the company run, right? Poop is like fluff. You know what I mean? So, for example, right? I work on maintenance functionality, right? So basically I design functionality and I write functions that help maintenance people in the field troubleshoot our system, right? Maintenance and bite, right? Like, nobody wants to work on that shit. That shit is like the worst. And it's cool because you get to learn how your system works, but if your system is fucking up, you want to be working on the shit so you don't have to. So I'm in a situation right now where I'm designing or defining maintenance requirements and functionality that are more complex than the fucking system. But we need more maintenance functionality. Well, hint, hint, if you need more shit to fix your shit, then your shit don't work. Right? But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let me go ahead and get back on topic. But like I said before, there's working on poop and then there's working on the shit. So think of it like this, right? Think of people who work on the shit are like quarterbacks or the franchise quarterback for the team, right? They gonna get all the bread and they gonna get all the responsibility and everything is gonna cater to them. But when you work on poop, that shit is like being a skill player or like a lineman, right? Like you do grunt work to help the team move forward. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's just the level of the shit, right? Like you as an individual are not important, right? Like the fluff or the poop is important, but you working on that, you being one individual or one individual on that is not important. You know what I'm saying? So let me go ahead and give you an example, right? Or let me go and tell you how you know if you're working on poop or if you're working on the shit. It's a real simple test, right? This is a real simple test to know if you're working on poop or if you're working on the shit. Here's what you do. If you want to know if you're working on poop or the shit, just go to your manager and give them your 2-week notice. All right? When you hand in your 2-week notice, if your manager says or if they respond with an increase in salary, like a substantial increase in salary, and if they also allow you to work from home and give you flexibility, then you're working on the shit because they don't want to lose you. They can't afford to lose you because you're an anchor to that piece for what they're doing. But if you go to your manager and you give your 2-week notice and your manager is like, oh man, well, have a nice life. You've been working on poop the whole time because you're expendable, right? So that's one thing I learned, like about the work game, you know? Know whether you're working on poop or working on the shit. And like I said before, like I'm not anti-work. I'm not anti-job, but what I am against is putting more into a company than you put into yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, a company gonna shit you out. That's how it's gonna go. Like once they're done with you, they're gonna get rid of you, right? And if you absorb so much of your time into that company, and now you get older, it's like you have nothing left, right? They basically have conned you into trading time for money. Now, if that's what you like to do, then by all means, go and do it. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, that's just me, right? But it's like if you value your time and yourself away from work, you have to like be able to decipher and discern, okay, am I working on the poop or am I working on the shit? Because if you're working on poop, you know that you better not be giving 100%. If you're working on poop, you better not be giving 100%. If you're working on the shit, I mean, you're probably going to be giving at least 95, you know. If you're talented, you can probably get away with giving 90, you know. But I'm all about human progress, man, and just overall life quality, you know. And like I said, I've seen people before that done poured 60, 80 hours a week into a company, and the company just got rid of them like they were nothing, you know. And that's just business, you know. That's how it works, right? You got to be able to recognize game, you know. So, anywho, this has been this edition of TBD Podcast, video podcast show. If y'all made it this far, thank you for listening. But do me a favor, if you made it this far and if you like the content or whether you like it or not, just beat up that like button. You know, beat that like button up. You know, And subscribe and do all that fun stuff. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everyone else. But other than that, man, that's been my time, and thank you for listening. I'm out. Peace.